Yo, what up, everybody? How's everyone doing? What's up, Juke, Matt, Supercar Scene, Felix? What up, dude? What's up, Junkie? EOS man, how you doing, bro? Vitor, Sloth. Cool. All right, guys. So I hope everyone's doing good. I know I meant to stream yesterday, so I apologize that I did not. But feeling a lot better today after a good night's sleep. So listen, not a lot has changed on Bitcoin since my last couple of videos, my last couple of streams, like with regard to the high time frame. So I'm happy to cover some. I'll very quickly go over the high time frame scenario of Bitcoin, ETH, and Solana, because I think those are, and then I'll look at the US 500 as well. And then from there, we'll open up the floor to anything that you guys want to cover. So if you guys want to look at specific coins, if you have questions about my strategy, if anything you want, you guys just ask me, and I'm more than happy to answer those questions. These are for you guys, of course. So I'll just really quickly start with some top down on Bitcoin. So this is always a great opportunity. If you're wondering where all my levels come from, you can understand that now. Okay, so here we have the highest monthly close in 2021. That's this 61K level here. Okay, then we have the highest monthly close until we broke out of this range, right, of this kind of 2024. Obviously, the highest monthly close of 2024 is over here. So that's a key level as well. We could even mark out if we wanted. Like, I think both of these levels actually are quite key. That's the yearly open, of course. Highest monthly close of 2024, yearly open. Highest monthly close of this kind of consolidation. Then we have this H12 SFP, right? Or H12, excuse me, this monthly swing failure pattern, which creates a monthly breaker. And this really kind of defines our high time frame buy area if we are to get one more push down. So I know things are like horrific right now, right? And we all are upset, and we're doom and we're gloom. But there's when you look at it on the high time frame, like, we're only really had one really ugly monthly candle. I mean, this one, March's candle closed meh, right? But we're three big red monthly candles is usually kind of the extent of it, right? 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Yes, we kept going down here, but we got a 50% bounce. 1, 2, 3, and then we effectively bottomed, right? Yeah, we went lower, but this was the bottoming range after these three big candles. So we're kind of, like, even if we get one more big one here, I think that's a very good case that the bottom is in, even if it's just for a bounce to a lower high and then maybe a continuation into some sort of bear market. But I do think that, we maybe have another 10 to 20% downside, whereas the upside, I think now back to all-time highs is over 30, and then obviously I think we extend bond there 50%. So I do think we're getting closer to a bottom, and we're definitely closer to a bottom than we are, potentially the top if the bull run is going to continue. Anything can happen. And based on what I saw yesterday in Trump's speech, really anything can fucking happen. The fact that it looks like the tariff calculation was quite literally like deficit, right, divided by make sure I spell that right, divided by exports or whatever it was, like equals tariff. That's clearly incorrect. And someone like checked all the math and like this is actually how they went through and got that. It makes me wonder like who the fuck is driving the goddamn boat. Like at least with Joe Biden, like you knew that he wasn't driving the ship because he was asleep, right? And so you would hope that maybe there were some professionals in the room, whereas like with Trump, there are professionals in the room, but Trump is he's cognizant. And maybe he's just, I don't know. I hope for the best. Prepare for the worst, hope for the best. So our bearish case, our bearish scenario, right, is we're going to still come down to here. And down in here is where I'm interested in getting long. And as you guys know, up in here is the area where a lower high forms. If we're going to bounce before here or even from here, the lower high, this is where it will form if it's going to. So if we're going to have a prolonged bear market where we sell off here, we get a big 50% bounce, and then we put in a lower high, this is where the lower high forms. But this is still, even if we're not going back to all-time high, this is where we want to long because the rip will be glorious. Remember, like this looks bad here, right? But this bounce was 50% on Bitcoin, let alone what you could assume some altcoins do during a bounce like this, right? Ultimately, this is where we need to reclaim yearly open and kind of the point of breakdown. This will become more clear on the weekly, but this is where we need to reclaim for price to be considered bullish again. So coming down here doesn't necessarily mean that we're going back to all-time high, but I do believe from here, we generate a significant bounce. Whether it's to new all-time high or it's to a lower high, I still want to be a bull down here. Where we determine whether or not we're going to a new all-time high, that occurs here. We need to get above here, and then, yeah, we can trade much higher, okay? What do we want to see, obviously, for that to happen? I've talked about this ad nauseum at this point. We want to see quantitative easing. We've got FOMC in a little over a month. We need them to cut rates because I don't see what else other bullish narrative there is other than quantitative easing, money going into the market. That's all I can see. So those are the monthly levels, okay? Go down to the weekly. None of this changes down here. We did have a weekly sweep here, which ended up providing a pretty nice bounce, right? From the low to the high. I mean, we bounced 15%, but now it looks like we're kind of rounding off again and that this might want to sell off low again, right? So if the bulls are gonna come in here and push this thing up, we got to get back above these weekly closes because otherwise this just looks like a lower high. And what comes after a lower high in a downtrend? A lower low. Right? So the bulls got a lot of work to do if they want this thing to go up. And a really good starting point would be a reclaim of 86,000. That'd be a really good starting point for the bulls to get back above here. Okay? Again, we've had that weekly downtrend break or uptrend break, right? So now we have weekly bearish market structure. There's your yearly open. There's that monthly level. And here's your weekly bearish order block. This becomes the critical area for either a lower high, right, or a reclaim, and then we're all of a sudden, back in a bull market. Until then, no point trying to guess where the bottom is. Obviously, I love the idea of buying here. Whether or not it's the bottom is irrelevant. It's going to be a good buying opportunity. It's going to provide us a bullish reaction. But this is where we determine whether or not we're still in a bull market. And if you're like trying to guess where the bottom is, it's way easier to just say, hey, I'm bearish and I'm selling rips until we get back above here. Okay. Now going even lower down to our intraday charts, we have that 12-hour breaker that caused that weekly sweep. There was a couple setups that formed in here, as you guys know, on these sweeps up to here. We had a nice one here as well. I believe this was last week's Monday trade. Here's a new one, right? But for now, it's like, okay, we're still within this zone, but this is a very ugly wick. You can argue it's news driven, but we've got a lot of down. So as much as like we're holding up in air quotes, right? Because we're still in potential higher low territory here on Bitcoin, equities have made a lower low, right? Equities have broken structure. So there's hope that this could still hold, this area 78 to 81. There's hope that this can hold and we can push towards 90. But it is a lot less likely with the downward pressure we're feeling. Equities are down 2% again today. So that's not great. The NASDAQ is, I think, had its worst day since COVID. Single day print. It's down almost 5%. Not good. So yes, relatively, Bitcoin is holding up better. But if we get some sort of big old nuke, like continuation on equities, this goes down too. So relative is a relative term, I guess you could say. So low time frame, you could argue that this is still support until it's not. And if you want a long based on that, by all means, go for it. I have no interest in really doing that. Could we get an H12 SFP here? Sure. And then maybe there's a low time frame trigger here. And that's all I've been pointing out to you guys. There's been a couple of low time frame trades in here that I've shared that have worked out. Awesome. And I'll continue to do that. But I'm not going to be telling you guys like, hey, fucking all in, swing long until we're down here, in my opinion, if we even get there. Or, maybe a swing short if we get up here. But I'm just going to remain cautious. Any sort of trades I'm doing, I think, remain low time frame. And I do think sitting out yesterday, unless you were willing to try and step in front of this, and then the question is, well, where do you short it, right, and why? But that would have been my I think sitting out was the right call. So we'll have to wait and see. Low time frame, I just don't think that there's anything super exciting. Maybe we get an H12 SFP on the daily close today. Okay, that's interesting. Then let's flip this into a breaker, right? Or this even. You could argue even this. Like maybe this prints a little low time frame long here. Right? We have the H12 sweep. Obviously, the daily candle hasn't closed yet, so this isn't active. Even if we break up here, right, the H12 candle hasn't closed, and the market structure breaks way up here. So you might want to go down to the 30-minute. There you go. So you could argue, okay, if we get a structure shift above here, maybe there's a low time frame long idea here. Break above here, retest, boom, stop there, target up into here. Maybe that's a scalp, but the daily candle hasn't closed, so this isn't even valid yet. And I'm just looking at that candle yesterday. I want to see the market digest the news a little bit more, this tariff stuff. I think the silver lining here is Trump has now played all his cards, basically, right? Like, we know the tariffs are going live. Okay, so there's less uncertainty about what he was going to do, because up until yesterday, there was, he might tariff, he might not, how much, who, where, what, when, why. We now have some certainty there. Market doesn't like uncertainty. We now have certainty, and the market doesn't like, the certainty we've been given, but at least we have some certainty there. And now we can start to look for reasons for the market to now digest this. Okay, we know what the tariffs are. Maybe some countries start removing their tariffs on the USA. Maybe we get some more dovish language from the Fed with regard to, or is it hawkish? Dovish, I think, with regard to moving towards quantitative easing. I don't know, right? Like those are the silver linings that we're now reaching for. But that can happen here. That can happen 15 to 20% lower. So just keep that in mind, right? And you can see here, equities, this is exactly where my video from 2 or 3 days ago, I'm like, this is where we make a lower high. We did fresh lows as we speak here, going into the last hour of the session. NQ, same thing, fresh lows, not looking good at all. You also got to look at equities and say, okay, like you could argue that we've broken structure here on the monthly now, right? I drew out this weekly structure break. You remember this? And I was like, hey, usually a weekly structure break, we get pretty ugly. Well, you could argue this is now a monthly structure break here, right? Not good. But some pretty generational buying opportunities, I think, below some of these lows. Like if you're just like, hey, where do I buy from my retirement savings account, like my 401k or RSP or whatever it is in your country, like as close to and below 5,000, I think like you come back in 6, 12, 18, 24 months kind of thing. It's like buying one of these dips, and then you just over a few year span, you've doubled your account, right? Like people forget, like this thing, I don't think that the top for America is in, right? So if you bought the top of COVID, like the Pico top of COVID at 3,000, right? 5 years later, you like almost doubled your money, and you bought the top, let alone buying on the dip, right? So there's some more of a, potential silver lining there. Stream today. I'm on stream now. All right. So yeah, like, I wish I had a lot of, better news, but yeah, I don't know. So I mean, ETH, like we're at monthly demand. So you could argue, okay, like, this is a monthly order block. Like we could long right now. Right? And if this thing's going to go back to all-time highs or those equal highs, right? Like, is this a trade you take? Maybe. If Bitcoin's going to go to the low 70s, I think that this low gets run out on ETH. But I do believe that, like, if the bull run is going to continue, buying ETH, like, sub 2K probably ends up looking pretty good. I just don't know if I have the balls to take this, to be honest with you, just based on what's going on with the rest of the market. Like, Bitcoin can't trade down here if this ETH trade's going to play out because, well, maybe it can, but I don't know. That's only 20% lower, and this is, 20% lower. So, yeah, if Bitcoin goes to here, ETH takes out this low. But if Bitcoin holds 78 to 80K, this becomes where you want to buy. So, I mean, if you're looking to be bullish on ETH, we're in a monthly order block. So now you want to start going into the lower time frames, and we want to look for signs of bullishness here, right? So we've got a range, you got a range like, basically here, I would say. So are we trading within this range? Are we, okay, we just ran the range low. Maybe there's some sort of low time frame trade here. I can get back towards the range high. But this is where you want to see a bullish setup form if you're a bull on ETH. Monthly demand, we want to start looking at things like weekly SFPs. We might have one here. Obviously, it's only Thursday, so still too early to tell. We want to start looking at, okay, well, we've got a daily SFP potentially today. Maybe that's the first clue of something shifting. But there's just not, unless you're just longing this off the monthly, right? Like you could long this, stop here, and then your target is, back into here, let's say, initially, and then potentially way higher. You can take this as is right now if you want. Okay? Thanks, Pierre. So you can take this as is right now if you would like to. However, I would much rather wait for some sort of low time frame action. So maybe we do this. Like maybe we do this and then this. Okay? And then we go up. Even though my entry might be worse, my stop is now, at 1700 instead of all the way down at 1400. So you get a tighter risk reward. When did I start, guys? I started at noon, so 23 minutes ago. Did you not see the event tab? It should be rewindable. Like I don't, these all stay up on YouTube forever. Yeah, we can cover Filecoin later for sure. I'll look at whatever altcoins you guys want to cover, guys. So ETH, we're in high time frame demand. This is where you want to pay attention. ETH has been getting shit on. ETH BTC continuously making new lows, right? It's got to get back above that old monthly low. But again, I'm not jumping into anything until we see some sort of just signs of life from the bulls. Solana, similar to ETH, it's into monthly demand. We've got some lows that are so close to being taken out, right? Like we've got now March's low here as well. So we've got a ton of monthly liquidity right below price. That's March's low. This is August 2024. That's March of 2024, and that's Feb of 2024. All of that is just below us. So I would like to think that if this thing's going to get some sort of significant bounce, it comes off of the liquidity that is, generated from taking out some of these monthly lows, right? But we are in monthly demand, similar to ETH. Low time frame, we want to start looking for signs of bullishness in here. You could theoretically long this as is, right? But your stop's got to go all the way down there, right? So then it's got to have a serious bounce for you to get a good risk reward. Whereas if we get some sort of weekly SFP of one of these levels, okay, all of a sudden you have a shittier entry, but a much tighter stop. So that's about all I got for the majors, guys, here. Again, nothing's really changed high time frame for me. Could Bitcoin hold right here? So someone in the chat, Storm King, is like, am I longing here with a stop below here? You could. Like, you could long Bitcoin. You could long Bitcoin right now with a stop below here. And then target the yearly open. Like, there's a trade there. For sure. Remember, I bought some spot at 78 and some more at 82. So that's what I'm watching. But you could take a long here, objectively, sure. Like you're betting on an over under. Like you're betting on this being a higher low, and we are within demand. So could it happen? Absolutely. Maybe stocks are due for a bounce after going down. What is this? 10%, 5% there, and then probably 10% on NQ. Maybe not quite 7% on NQ. But ultimately, over the last 2 weeks, NQ is down almost 10%. The S&P is down, almost 7%. So you are taking your along, kind of against the grain. But doable, sure. How much faith do you have? How much hope do you have in SPX? In what sense? Like long term or in the immediate term? What time frame are we talking here? Because long term, I still believe in America, and I think if what Trump is doing works out, here's the thing. It's a lot like war, right? So one of the things that always happens in crypto specifically, in stocks as well, right, is you'll have price, do this, boom, boom, and then Israel is going to bomb fucking Iran or whatever, right? And then you get this big dump, right? And then everyone's like, fucking war, it's over. But the smart people, they always buy that war blood, right? And the logic behind it is think of it as like a decision tree. So if war, okay, price drops. If war doesn't happen, so there's no war, right? Price goes up. If there is war, right, we're probably fucked. Like if Israel were to nuke Iran, the price of your coins becomes irrelevant, right? You know what I mean? Like, does that, what I'm explaining here make sense? Like, the people who buy the war blood, it's like, well, if the USA is going to go bomb Russia, if that happens, you're going to be looking for fucking shelter, let alone, what you're longing. So it's always kind of like good to buy that fear, right? Because you're basically the other side of that bet is like fucking nuclear destruction. And I think of this trade kind of similarly in that if what Trump does works out, it is good for America. Like whatever you think about Trump or how he came about all this stuff, if manufacturing jobs come back to the US, if the Fed lowers rates, if he's able to refinance debt at a lower rate, print more dollars, that's all good stuff for America. It just is. And therefore, eventually, the stock market is going to go back up. Maybe not in the next quarter, but maybe near the end of the year or next year, right? So you're betting on America surviving and the continuation of America exceptionalism and it remaining the superpower of the world. Whereas the counterweight of that bet is if everything Trump's doing is fucking retarded and it doesn't work out and we're going into like a giga recession anyways. And then it's like, okay, I'm now worried about a lot of different other stuff. If America goes into like some giga recession and that kickstarts China as the new global superpower, you know what I mean? Like, does that make sense or am I fucking nuts? Sluice says, Jesus fucking Christ. So I assume he understands what I'm saying. Anyways, you guys let me know if what I just said makes sense. Alex says, against the grain, you've been golfing, bro. Dude, spring is finally sprung here in fucking Canada. Like the sun is out. I haven't seen the sun. Last 2 days have been beautiful, but I haven't seen the sun in weeks. And so I've got the golf clubs coming out of storage and I'm itching. I am absolutely fucking itching to get back out there. I cannot wait. Okay, so that's all I got. Makes sense, but building factories and moving supply chains, it absolutely does. But the market, okay, is forward-looking, right? The market is forward-looking. So when the market is green, like the economy can be going down. Like things can be bad, but if the market is green, the market is forward looking. So the idea here is if all of those things do get put into place, factories are going to come back, supply chains are going to move, the market is going to react to that before it actually happens. You're in Toronto. Courses open next week. Bro, you got to come out east. You got to come out west, bro. Come out to Vancouver, to the West Coast. I'll take you golfing, bro. We have some unreal courses out here. I haven't golfed in Toronto. I don't know. Going to the range after the stream. What a Chad. Okay, let's look at Fartcoin, of course. We're talking about the economy collapsing, crypto nuking, and what do people want to see? They always want to see Fartcoin, man. If and when the market does, let's assume that we go back into a bull run. Okay, like let's assume we go back to a bull run. To me, Fartcoin is going to rip. And the reason I believe that is because it's got such a stranglehold on the mind share of crypto. And it's so ridiculous that like once something catches a bid finally, like I find it hard to believe that like this doesn't just like catch the bid like crazy. But Fartcoin, I mean, I don't know. There's not much to say. Like, it's into weekly demand here. My biggest issue with Fartcoin is just it's so volatile. So, like, if you're trading this thing, bro, you just got to be so nimble. So, on the weekly, we have weekly demand, and we have this weekly low. So, now when we zoom in, okay, you have a pretty clear level for bias. Right? Like we can reclaim this old weekly low. I think that's quite bullish and there's potential that we squeeze up, maybe back towards the old weekly high. But ultimately, like, this is weekly demand. Any of these lows, if the market remains bearish, any of these lows become the target. See how we took out this low? Okay, well, if this rolls over again, next target's here. If it rolls over again, the next target is here. All right? But it is into weekly demand, and similar to what I explained on Bitcoin and ETH and Solana, this is a huge area, right? Like, this is a fucking 50% box. You don't necessarily just want to long here, right, and put your stop all the way down here. Like, that's crazy. Like, it's got to bounce super hard for you to get, you know, good risk reward. It's got to go back to almost $1. Whereas now we know, hey, this is an area to look. Doesn't mean it's going to bounce here. Like, this can fail. The weekly order block can fail. But it's an area to pay attention to, right? It's an area to pay attention to for potential longs to form. Remember my sniper analogy, right? You start with the widest field of view, and it's about ratcheting that down. Widest field of view is your highest time frame, and we're ratcheting that down to an execution time frame where you take the headshot, you know? In a recent stream, you mentioned beginning traders often struggle with establishing a daily bias. Can you give some additional pointers to that, especially when it comes to shorter time frames, when prices are kind of diddling around, not trending strongly or in a very clear range? So the reason I shared with you guys the H12, H1 strategy, right, is because it does that work for you. So when you have your H12 range, let's say it's a bullish range because price did... It made a low, right? And then it made a fresh high. Okay? Remember, we now have a break-in structure here. Okay? We have an order block down here. So what is my bias? Well, if we're near the top of the range and we just made a new high, my bias is actually down towards this point of interest, towards the order block. Okay? And if we're at the order block, my bias is now to the range high and to continuation of the trend. So by explaining the system in this way, I give you the daily bias. Okay, are we expecting the pullback to the POI? There's your bias. Are we at the POI? Well, now my bias is for continuation of the high time frame trend. Right? So that's what it does the work for you. Now there's other ways to determine your bias, right? Like, again, what is Monday's range? Well, we made Monday's low, we made Monday's high, and we now deviated back in. Well, now my bias is low. Okay? There's a billion ways to do this, right? Like I just explained on Fartcoin here. We just took out last week's low. If we're able to get back above last week's low, guess what? My bias is now towards last week's high. So there's a variety of different ways to determine your bias. We're in a weekly order block. So my bias within this area is bullish, but I still need to see low time frame, you know, clues to actually want to get long, right? But that's how it works, right? You use these different tools to determine what is my bias? Where is the next most likely place for price to go? Like, gun to my head, looking at the daily chart on Fartcoin here, depending on how this candle closes, my next bias target might be back up to here, just based on the daily, or at the very least, maybe back into this fair value gap kind of inversion here, right? And then we took out a low, we tagged a daily order block. This becomes the new draw. That's now my daily bias is now up, right? Okay. So that is kind of what you need to do. And so on the low time frames, it's the same thing, right? Like if I'm using the lowest time frames here, like let's just go to some random fucking pair here, right? Let's delete. No, let's just delete this. I don't know what this is. I don't know what's going on here. So let's go to like the H1. Okay. If I'm like And let's just pick some random point in time, and then I'm going to just try and like cook this for you in hindsight here, right? Okay, so like forget everything that's happened on the high time, forget everything that's going on the chart here, right? Like based on this H1, where do you think the draw on liquidity is? Do you think it's above or below? Like, are we going higher or lower next? Like my eye immediately is drawn to, okay, we just took out a high, right? Like we're in a range here, and we just took out the range high basically. To me, my draw is now lower. So I now want to be looking for like, okay, I think we're going to go lower. We're going to take out some of these lows, and maybe we're going to trade into this, right? Some sort of PD array below price. Maybe ultimately even lower, but this is where my eyes are drawn. We've got lows here. We just took out a high, right? And then you can play the chart out. And it goes up a little, and then bang, takes out all the lows, right? And like I'm just doing that kind of visually, but like now, okay, hold on, let me pause it. Okay, now we've just taken out all of the lows on the hourly. I can say, okay, well, we just took out, like, there's still this low. Maybe that gets taken, but we've taken out all of these. I think we probably get some sort of mean reversion up into this fair value gap, perhaps. Right? We ended up taking out that low. And then we come up to the fair value gap, or pretty close to, right? So we ended up taking out that additional low that I had mentioned, like right down here. Sorry, I should use the different drawing tool here because everything's moving. But we took out all the lows. Took out all the lows. Well, then where's the draw, I think? Okay, this fair value gap becomes the draw above us. And if I know that, okay, my hourly draw was back into this fair value gap, when I'm on the low time frame, and I say, hey, okay, we just took out all the lows here. Just took out all the lows here. My draw is now up into here. Well, now on the M5, I'm going to be looking for reasons to get long. Okay, well, we just had a gap fill. Right? We just filled in that gap. Oh, we've got a breaker here. We've got an order block and a break in structure, right? Like, does that make sense? Fart coin is my second chance at Popcat. No, it's not. I'm way too late. I am way too late. Main, sir, do you teach us any other strategies beside the H12, H1 strategy? Well, I have that new education series, which is a new strategy, but it has a lot of similarities to the H12, H1. Now, remember, the H12, H1 strategy is just a introduction to trading price action, right? It gives you, remember, I just explained this basically, right? Fuck off. I don't want this anymore. Go away. But it gives you a bunch of shit, right? What do you need to enter a trade? Okay? We need our bias. Okay? That's the first thing that you need. Second thing we need, okay, is we need our area of interest, our POI. Where are we looking for the trade to form? Whether this is your order block, your breaker block, right? Your FVG, whatever it is, okay? Next thing, we need our entry, like our actual trigger. Okay? We need to know where our stop goes. Target. Is the risk reward good, right? Does the risk reward meet our criteria? Is the RR at least 2-to-1 or 3-to-1, whatever it is for your strategy, okay? All these things are needed. And all of these things can be found with price action. I just showed you, okay, I can get a bias. I can find an order block. I know how to enter. I enter at the order block, stop below, target above. You can do all of that. But the H12, H1 system, when you have your range, okay, and then you have your order block, and we're here, what do I have? I have my bias. We're at the order block. My bias is we go up. My POI, We're right at the OB. I've got that. So we've got my order block. My entry, I know that I'm going to zoom in here and I'm going to look for my little fractal. We got that. Fractal also gives us the stop. We got that. Where am I targeting? Range high. We got that. Does the risk reward work? We got that. So this gives you all of the pieces of a strategy in a mechanical system that is easy to teach. And it's a great way for beginners to get going. One of the hardest things people have is figuring out bias. Why does one order block work and the other one doesn't? How do I actually enter? Where does my stop go? And the system that I've explained to you here, guys, it gives you all of that in a very mechanical way. And then once you understand that, you can now dive more into price action in general, right? So, and the reason I do it this way is because I've taught thousands of people at this point how to trade with this basic kind of framework, and then they can expand on it their own, right? Like my goal here is to show you the door. This is a strategy that you can start executing right away. I think the problem is a lot of people, as they join a group or they find someone on YouTube, but they're like, how do I actually go and start and do this in my charts myself? And the mechanical nature of what I've shared with you allows you to get into the charts and actually get your hands dirty, start figuring shit out, start getting the pattern recognition going. And all of that stuff is super, 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 super critical. Can I look at gold? Sure. So, yeah, pretty funny that gold's been just on an absolute tear. Maybe it is the actual hedge against inflation. So I posted this on Twitter yesterday. I said, I think gold's probably due for some sort of pullback. And I just marked out, I think this is a 3-day order block. So I'm like, gold's due for a bit of a pullback. I thought maybe back into this 3-day order block and then potentially continuation. Gold right now is showing us that it is indeed the true hedge against inflation and uncertainty. It's doing everything that we wanted crypto to do. Like, this is what we wanted crypto to do. The start of 2025, Trump took office. There's uncertainty in the market. Gold is up 20%. Like, that's the goal for crypto. Crypto, Bitcoin is supposed to be hedge against inflation, right? It's supposed to be a store of value. Right? It's supposed to be this recession-proof asset like gold, right? But instead, Bitcoin has just basically become the stock market. high beta stock market. Sorry, one sec here, guys. Literally, Ledger just called me and asked me for my private keys, and I just gave it to them. So hopefully that goes well. Ever since that fucking Ledger data leak, bro, goddamn nightmare. I get so many spam calls. They tried to trick me. But you're not going to catch me. Not that easily. Anyways, so yeah, Bitcoin's just unfortunately become like giga beta stocks, which is gay. But what was I talking about? I was talking about gold. So I thought gold was going to come back to here, and the dollar had been bouncing, right? We had taken out this low, and I'm like, oh, the dollar's due for some relief. But then yesterday, the dollar just got smoked. And I think it makes sense because it's kind of in line with like the whole narrative of what happened yesterday, right? Is like, okay, people are bearish on this for the USA. I mean, we're still just in this ginormous range, right? And you want to see an easy chart to trade when you use these as confluence. It is gold, right? So if you take gold here, like, when did this crazy, most recent rally start for gold, right? Like right here, the dollar tops out, falls back within the range, and the gold forms its swing low, right? So gold still looks strong. I think, and it's proving to do what it's supposed to do. Peter Schill's, jizzing in his pants. But we are coming towards the range low now on the dollar here. Maybe some demand here. Range low, definitely. Like, is this range going to break down? Or is it just going to do one of these back towards the range high, right? Like, this is a multi-year range. So, depending on what goes on here, this is where we'll determine if gold's going to cool off or not. No face cam, no fab. I don't know what's going on with my camera today. It's not working. All my calls I've been on, my camera's not worked. I'm sorry. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question? I hope it does. Can we check Solaire? Sure. What the fuck? Bruh. This can't be right. What is this coin? Hold on a second. What is this? What is this coin that is up 2,000%? Like 1,700%? What? 4,000%? Hold on. What is this coin? And did someone tell me, like, why is this up 4,000% in the last 3 months and everything is dying? Am I looking at the wrong thing? Layer. This is up even more. Or it's the same thing. It's the same coin. It's the exact same. Sir, I'm from Microsoft. I give me team viewer code. I can fix your camera. It's the same coin, right? Layer on Bybit. This is the same coin. Same thing. This just has all the history. I don't know what this is. What is it? Explain it to me. And why is it up so much? And why don't I own a single penny of it? What is the market cap? The market cap's 300 mil. What is this? I mean, which sectors are holding best in this mess? AI, RWA gaming. I don't know. There's probably a bucket. Someone probably has a spaghetti chart that shows you this. Like crypto. What would be the specific fucking by category maybe? So let's see, like sectors. What are the biggest crypto sectors? So like you've got like this someone probably has a spaghetti chart for this. But let's see in the last week, what's up the most? Stable coins. Tokenized assets, right? That'd be RWA. So what are these? These are holding up okay. Like, and what's holding up the worst? AI memes are down the most. AI agents are down a fuckload. Gaming down a lot. Layer 2s, memes down a lot. AI in general down a lot. So it looks like RWA is holding up relatively better. Did I read that right? RWA is only down, 11, where some other stuff's down 20. So I'm sure someone has a spaghetti chart that shows all of these together, but it looks like the thing that's holding up the best is fucking stable coins, bro. Sorry to say. Yeah, whatever. Someone explain to me what Solare is and why it's up so goddamn much and why I don't own a single fucking penny. Who asked for me to look at this chart? Felix, explain yourself. What is Solare about? Solare is developing an Infini SVM, a next-generation blockchain architecture designed to achieve unprecedented throughput, low latency, and robust composability. That might as well be Mandarin to me, bro. But whatever they're doing, it works because you just said a bunch of gobbledygook. But at the end of the day, the most important narrative is the number going up? And so right now, Solare, fantastic coin. One of the best coins possibly ever. But yeah, all I can say is I hope that you longed it 2 months ago. Right now, if you want some shorter time frame analysis, I'd say, we're within this. No, technically not. We're now within this range here. So it's kind of contracting here. But the only thing I would say is like this trend has lost a bit of momentum, right? So like huge swing, much smaller swing. So what you got to be concerned about here is if this makes another high, there's potential that this might put in some sort of bearish divergence, I'd imagine. I can just tell by looking at it. So what you want to see is it get busted with a big green candle. That would be the best case scenario. But I imagine, maybe I'm wrong, if I threw the RSI on here, yes. Right? So you can see what I mean, right? Just from looking at the RSI is we clearly had an uptrend here. And the RSI made higher highs. Big swing. But now, yes, this is making higher highs and higher lows, but it's diminished in strength. Hence, the relative strength is making lower highs. So that'd be the only cause for concern. And how do you bust out of this? With a massive green candle. Krill has a lesson in his Whoop that shows you how to make your own spaghetti. There you go. At-home spaghetti with Krillin. Makes perfect sense. All right, guys. So, yeah, I mean, I don't have a ton else to update on. I think hopefully the market digests this. I would be the most bullish scenario is this, right? We hold this area as a higher low. That's the dream. I'm just not like giga confident in that at this point. So I'm just being cautious and I'll remain, kind of showing you guys low time frame opportunities until we get some more resolution on the high time frame. So next video from me should be the next episode in the course. And that is on Whoop. I know someone was like, where's the course? It's on Whoop. UB is now put everything on Whoop. All right, guys. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you learned something. And as always, if you got any questions, just tag me in the chat. I do my best to answer everything within 24 hours. So if I don't answer you, please do not hesitate to tag me again. I try very hard to not miss anything. All right, guys. Luis, enjoy the golf course, buddy. And I'll talk to you guys all. Louise. S. Louise? What are you trying to say? You're like, here's how you say it, and then you spelt it the exact same fucking way. Thank you, my love. Ooh, blackberries. You guys got to get a wife, man. It's the best. She just brings me food all day. It's awesome. All right, guys. Appreciate y'all tuning in. I'll talk to y'all soon. Stay safe out there. Don't be afraid to go touch some grass. All right. Love you. Bye.